Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Side Hustle Ideas. I am Bill, the company's expert. This is the weekly live stream where we talk about entrepreneurship, startups, that kind of stuff. Side hustles, obviously, like in the name. So if you are looking at adding an income source, revenue stream, any of that stuff in the form of a side hustle, maybe you're already employed, maybe you're looking to start this up, or maybe you are unemployed, you are between jobs right now, and to supplement your job search campaign, you are thinking of doing this, or you're wanting to do this. This is where we talk about it. So this is a interactive live stream, so you should be able to see a chat box somewhere near my face. You can get in the chat, let me know what you're struggling with, let me know what you are wondering about, and I will do my best to help you out. The title of today's episode is The 3 Biggest Mistakes New Entrepreneurs Make and How to Avoid Them. This is the 69th episode of Side Hustle Ideas. So we're going to be talking about that today. Obviously a big shout out goes out to my YouTube channel members. You guys are awesome. There's my little plug for this. Membership has its privileges. Also to my Patreons and to my super thanks donors, you guys are equally awesome. And also to my participants, thank you for being here. I see there's 11 people here so far. You guys are awesome. Let's talk about business and let's talk about how you can succeed in this. And just something I'd like to mention is that also if you are wanting to learn business, not necessarily to start your own company or do a side hustle, but also you're interested in it in its own right so that you can learn the principles and you can be more effective in your existing career or your existing job, that is definitely a thing. So check that out. And one last public service announcement. If you are looking to learn business for either entrepreneurship purposes or being in business for yourself or doing a side hustle or anything like that, enhancing your career, check out that course. I have a Master's of Business Administration. I have led a couple of different companies, one company as the CEO, and I created that course. It's actually more of a program than a course, but I created that course for people who are wanting to learn business. So check that out. There's a link in the description. Best bang for the buck anywhere. Okay, let's get into it. So the 3 biggest mistakes new entrepreneurs make and how to avoid them. Where are these coming from? These are coming from my own personal experiences, not only being an entrepreneur, but also advising entrepreneurs. I went through several years there where I was advising younger entrepreneurs, both in startups, which are more sort of innovative, tech-oriented, but also people in SMEs, small business. They're looking to start a more conventional business, like in construction or something, and advising them with that stuff too. So that's where these are coming from. Okay, without any further ado, mistake number 1. I've seen this a lot, okay? This is a big deal. Now, how do you call this? What's the name for it? I would say poor validation or no validation. You could also describe this as people who skip the market research step. That's, I think, what this is more commonly referred to, but that's probably not the best description of it. How can I put this? A lot of people, when they want to start their own business, okay, if it's like a creative type thing, you're not just buying and selling, but you're creating something. Whether you're creating a product or you're creating a service, something I've noticed that especially with introverted types, technical types like myself, don't get me wrong, you guys, and you know who you are, you're awesome. You have a lot of things going for you, but you can have a blind spot. And I've met several entrepreneurs that have this blind spot. And I once had this blind spot too. And that is that you look inward. You think, what do I want to do? What product do I want to make? What product do I think people should have? Or what service do I think people should have that they don't have right now? Right? They look inward for what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. Okay? Now, don't get me wrong. You're smart. You know lots of stuff. That's great. But we are not engaged in a research project here. Okay? Instead, this is supposed to be a business, and a business makes money. And in order to make money, you have to sell something to someone in some capacity. And so that means that ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to create something that people want, or even better, people need. And that is determined by them, not by you. So in order to understand what to do and how is the best way to go about doing it, you need to look outside of yourself. You need to go to the people that you're thinking of selling to, your potential customers or clients. That's who you need to connect with. And you need to get their opinions and look at their behavior and listen to what they say. That does not come from within. That comes from without. That means you have to go and you have to find that. And you have to connect with these people. And the problem is that if you don't do that, you run into this flaw, okay? Where you produce something that you think is awesome. You think that everyone should want this. But then you find out later at the end that they don't. This is a very real problem. I've seen many examples of this. People that I've advised fall into this trap. And it's very understandable. I don't blame these people. It's a beautiful thing to want to contribute to the world and feel that you have a vision. You have an idea of what would be awesome, and you want to bring that into existence. And that's great. It's your vision. The problem is that you have to be so tuned in to the way other people look at things, okay, for that to work. And that's actually pretty damn rare, okay? This is one situation where I hate to say it, but extroverted types have a little bit of the edge here. Because extroverted type entrepreneurs, they are inferior in many ways to introverts in terms of the operations and all that kind of stuff. But one thing that they usually outperform introverts on is they're out talking to their potential customers. They have an idea of what their customers are receptive to and what they're not receptive to. They have more awareness of what competitive solutions and competition is out there in the market. So if, for example, you are wanting to produce a product that you would sell to businesses, okay? You wouldn't sell directly to consumers. Maybe you sell it to stores that carry your product, okay? Like, I don't know, if you're in the clothing business, you create clothes and you don't sell them directly to the public. You sell them to stores who carry the clothes, put your clothes in their store, and then they sell it to the public, right? So your customers are the stores, right? So where extroverts sometimes have an advantage, extroverted entrepreneurs, is they're out there talking to the stores. They're learning about what the stores think about, accepting new suppliers, how to go about it, what the stores' thoughts are on whether a certain thing would sell, or it would be an easy sell or a tough sell, or price points and all this kind of stuff. So you're getting all this information and you're getting all this feedback about what they think would be a good idea based on what reasoning, and you're incorporating that into what you do. That's the way to do it, because ultimately you're not producing this for yourself. I mean, if you're happy doing it, great, but you're ultimately producing it to be sold. That means it's for other people, and it's the realization of that. Okay, so how do you describe this mistake? I would say poor or no validation. And you could also say you're skipping the market research step before you just decide what to do and how to do it. Okay. Another variant of this is people who want to produce a thing that solves a technical problem, which is great, but they have no clear business model. That means they don't understand how to turn that into a money-making venture. Who's this going to be sold to? Do we have proof that they indeed would buy it? Is this what they're looking for? How much would they pay for it? Do they trust it? Are they open to it? Right? There's a difference between what's logical, so they should want it, and hard world results. Do they want it? There's a completely different thing between those two things. Should they want it is not the same thing as do they want it. As a society, we don't want the things that we should want. I've made this point many times. I mean, you can look up the statistics on this. I don't know what they are, but I was once told them, and it's like we spend so much more on, entertainment, like movie theaters and stuff like this, than we do on education as a society. It's like, is that like the right priorities? Probably not, right? But yeah, that's what we do. We should put more of an effort in maybe education, you could argue, but we don't, right? So the logical argument that people should want this is not the same thing as actually going out and validating it and making sure that they, in fact, see it that way and they are willing to buy it. Okay? There are two different things. Many people have messed up their entrepreneurial ventures by making those assumptions. So don't be that. Has anybody here seen the Spice Girls movie? That's the question of the day, because there's a quote in that movie. It's like the stupidest thing ever. But they have Roger Moore, the guy who played James Bond, in that movie. And he's giving all these pseudo-wise sayings. And he said something along the lines of, some big philosophical thing about a chicken. And then he says to a guy, do not be that chicken, right? So do not be that chicken. Don't make this mistake. Okay? Why is this a mistake? Because as an entrepreneur, this is something that a lot of people don't realize. You're on a journey not to make money. That's not the direct journey you're on. You're on a journey to best understand your customers, how they think, what their perspective is, what their reaction to things are, what they would consider good or bad. You're on that journey to assist them and to understand them. And the more successful you are in that respect, the financial success will follow. Okay? So if you're really good at that, fortune will follow. If you're not good at that, fortune won't follow. That's the journey you're on. Okay? How to avoid this? Adopt some basic extroverted traits, which is not that hard. All you got to do is get out and interact with the people you're hoping to sell to. And that's something that you would do anyway at some point in this process. You just need to do it a bit sooner. You need to start with that. Okay, so that's the first of the 3 mistakes we're going to go into today. As I said, get in the chat. Let me know your thoughts, your reactions. It'd be kind of cool to hear what people's feedback is about this kind of stuff as I go. That would be really nice. We move on to mistake number 2. Okay, if you're just joining us, we are covering the 3 biggest mistakes that new entrepreneurs make and how to avoid them. Okay, we talked about mistake number 1. Mistake number 2. Here it is. Taking out big loans. And I would generalize this by saying spending a lot of money right out of the gate. Bad idea. Okay? As I just mentioned, you are on a journey as an entrepreneur to best understand your customers. It is a journey of knowledge. The more knowledge you have, the more successful you will be. Imagine this. If you understood exactly how everyone thought, exactly how they viewed things, what appeals to them, what doesn't appeal to them, and you knew what their reaction would be, what you could say to them that their reaction would be like, whoa, that's just amazing, right? If you knew that, this would be easy. You would produce that thing. You don't even have to produce the thing. You could just sort of advertise that thing, promote that thing, and say, this is what I have for you. And everybody's reaction would be, oh my God, that's amazing. I must have it, right? Imagine if you knew what to say to people to provoke that reaction, right? Obviously, that would be a great thing. If you could then produce the thing and sell it to people, it would be all smiles and chuckles, wine and roses, right? From that point on. The challenge is figuring out what that is. A lot of times we present our market with something and it doesn't go over as well as we were hoping it would. We were hoping everybody would be excited about it, and it turns out they're not. Maybe they don't see the value of it. Maybe it's actually a good thing for them, but the value is not communicated correctly. Or maybe that just doesn't appeal to them. Maybe that appealed to them 5 years ago, but not now. That's getting old, right? Or, unbeknownst to you, you have a competitor that also provides that kind of thing, but they do a better job. So your offering isn't as compelling, right? So that's how usually it goes, right? So it's this quest for knowledge. That's what you're really on. And the person who understands their market, their potential customers, better, that person wins. Okay? Now, let's get back to mistake number 2. Okay, I said it was taking out big loans. Now, why is this a bad thing? In theory, it shouldn't be a bad thing. Because if you knew exactly what to do, but let's say it was beyond your current resources to actually do that thing, to execute on that plan, you might need extra resources. You take out a loan, and then you can pay for different things that you would need to actually execute on that plan. Okay? But here's the problem. Usually, when people are starting out, they don't know what's the right thing to do. They think they do, but it turns out that their first guess is usually not the correct one. So I'm going to introduce something called financial leverage. You guys know what financial leverage is? For those of you who don't, let me briefly explain. Okay, leverage is something that amplifies what you do. Okay? Now, let's say you're going to make a decision and you're going to do a thing. It turns out it could be a smart thing to do, in which case you'd have good results. Or it turns out it might be a stupid thing to do that fails, and then you have bad results, right? Well, leverage amplifies that, right? So taking out a loan is a form of financial leverage. So if you take out, so let's say you have $5,000 to spend on something, and you use it, and that enables you to do a thing, okay? If it turns out that that thing you did was the right thing to do, you make money, and the $5,000 investment pays off. If it turns out that the thing you did was actually not the right thing to do, it doesn't pay off, and you probably will lose a lot of your $5,000 investment. Okay? Now, let's pretend that you took out a loan for $50,000. Okay? That's leverage. It's financial leverage. It amplifies the effect, the risk and return of what you're doing. So now you spend $50,000 to try your idea on a bigger scale. If it turns out to be the right thing to do, the odds are is that you will succeed even bigger. So it pays off even more, right? It amplifies the return. But if it turns out that you spent the $50,000 doing something stupid, as it turns out, you get failure, and you get an even bigger failure than what you have had otherwise, because now you've spent $50,000 and you probably incurred much bigger losses, and now you're on the hawk for paying back that $50,000 loan, right? So you have an even bigger loss. So that's what leverage does. It amplifies the effect. Now, when you know what you're doing, leverage can be a good thing, okay, for obvious reasons. If you don't know what you're doing, and the odds are pretty good that you may stumble along the way and you might make some bad decisions, being leveraged up to amplify the effect of what you're doing is pretty damn risky. And it's highly likely that you will be making a lot of those missteps in the beginning when you're just starting out and you don't really know your customers or the market or the industry or how anything works. So that's not the time to be leveraged all the way up at the very beginning. You don't want to do that. You want to start out slowly in a very managed control way. So if you stumble, it's okay. You learn a little bit, and you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you keep going, right? Not that much harm done. Maybe you risk your time being wasted. Maybe you risk, a minor inconvenience. But you don't bet your entire financial future on a personal level. You know what I'm saying? So I have seen people make this mistake. They take out big loans, sometimes in the form of government programs, right at the very beginning. And then they spend that money on stupid crap. They buy like a fancy office space. They get a website up and all these things that don't actually pay off. Or they produce, a prototype or something that it turns out nobody is interested in buying, unbeknownst to them. And that's where the problems begin, because now they have amplified their failure. They're now on the hawk for huge amounts of money. And then that means it's over. They have to stop. They have to get a regular job, pay off their loan, and keep going. And they'll probably be so gun shy of trying this ever again. That'll be their entrepreneur experience over with for their entire life. So that's why this is a bad thing, okay? Taking out big loans, I know it's a standard thing, but combine that with the statistic that everybody keeps quoting, over 90% of new businesses fail within their first year, right? How do you reconcile that fact that most people are aware of with taking out a giant loan right off the hop to try your new business idea in the first year, right? So this is actually a bad thing. Let's go over to you guys very briefly here. I see V8 Super Specialist here. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. One thing that always buggered me is, let's say your idea is really good and then you get copied, and who copies you has bigger means and grabs the market. What do you do? Okay, now that is a thing. I have seen that. I know of one guy that I interacted with quite a few years ago who that happened to him. He lost his house. He was screwed over by a big company who sort of took his idea and did it on a much bigger scale. So that is a thing. However, that's a wild exception for most people. I have also seen a lot of people that are paranoid of their untested idea or theory, being leaked, right? When it's just a person with an idea, they have no backup, they have no evidence that that idea is any good whatsoever. You know what I mean? And they're absolutely paranoid about this. And everything they do is geared around confidentiality and security. And it's such a hindrance. The real world results I've seen is that those people have never gotten their ideas off the ground, even 10 years later, because they're so paranoid about, anyone knowing what they are. I had a meeting several years ago. I don't remember the details, but I remember I was an advisor, and this person had arranged a meeting for me to help advise them on their business, but yet they would not tell me what their business did. And it was a very unproductive meeting. I mean, how am I supposed to give advice? I don't even know what you do. So I know that does affect some people, but it is more the exception than the rule. You should not be worried about this. Nobody generally is going to want to rip off your idea and steal it from you if it's just an idea that hasn't been proven. It hasn't made any money. No one's shown an interest in it other than you, and it's never even been executed on. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of my thoughts on that. That's what I've observed anyway. V8 Super Special, the most reasonable answer I read was, get a patent for your idea and then fight it in court, but how really viable is it? It isn't viable. I mean, unless you're prepared to go to court. Some people are. But okay, so you haven't made any money with this idea, but yet you're having to spend a ton of money to defend it because it's nothing but a liability, right? Over what? You know what I mean? So yeah, I would personally, my recommendation would be to avoid that entire issue. Don't be shy about executing on your idea, and don't be so paranoid about it because you're always worried that someone's going to try and steal it. If there's no evidence that it's worth anything, the general rule is nobody's out there to steal it. G Mario 1 says you can always go back and watch mistake number 1. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. Hello, Youssef. Hello, Julia. Julia. Yeah, excellent. Okay, let's get on with this. We still have idea number 3, or mistake number 3 to cover. Now, mistake number 3, I've seen this several times, and I don't know of any official term to describe this, or phrase or description of it, because I did look. Now, I have called this being a middleman. I did a video a long time ago, which some people really liked and other people really hated because they thought they only read the title and didn't watch the video and then got upset. The video was called Don't Be a Middleman. Okay. Now what I'm describing is I'm trying to describe the type of entrepreneur that, how can we put this? They are an outsourcing entrepreneur. So there's someone who decides, I'm going to start a company, but the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to be the sort of money person. And I'm going to outsource everything that I need done. So I'm going to outsource the operations to a company. I'm going to pay them by the hour, or I'm going to contract them to create a product or a service for me. Then I'm going to outsource the sales and marketing component. I'm going to pay a sales and marketing company to do that for me, or I'm going to hire employees at an hourly rate or something, at a wage, to do sales for me. And everything I need done in my business, all the technical stuff, all the business stuff, I'm just going to pay people to do it, like either their employees or their contractors. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and I'm going to deal with the financing. I'm going to go get sources of capital, usually loans, and I'm going to pay for all these things, and then I'm going to coordinate between them. I'm not going to do any of the actual work. The people I employ will do all the actual work for me, including strategy, and I'm just going to pay them to do this. Okay? Now, I don't know if that has a name. The best name I could come up with is an outsourcing entrepreneur. Okay? In the past, I've called it being a middleman, because that's what you are. You're a middleman between your operations department, market research, sales department, all your services to like run the business, including like if you're doing patents and all the other stuff you might want to do, payroll, right? Branding, like everything. You're just going to pay people to do it. In my experience, that is a recipe for disaster. Now, I'm not sure if there's any actual hard theory that I can produce to prove that this model doesn't work. I have come up short in trying to do that. But in every instance I've seen this, and I've seen several instances of this where I've been called in as an advisor to try and advise someone, and this is their whole plan. I've advised them against doing it. A lot of times they went ahead and did it anyway, and they failed. And they failed for the reasons that I said they would. There's multiple things wrong with this. First of all, okay, borrowing money to pay people's salaries or pay for people's services is just a bad idea, because it will cost you an overhead, a quite big overhead as it turns out, to pay for these things instead of you producing it yourself. Okay? So usually a lot of entrepreneurs, they are capable of doing some work themselves, right? You could look at it as sweat equity, or just having a creative idea that's competitive with what's going on in the real world. Like that's the source of value, is the idea. You're doing something that no one's ever tried before. But you're going to be adding value in some way. Now, an entrepreneur who just does this is not really adding value. The other thing is that these people are going to be working so inefficiently for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you're paying industry rates and stuff for this stuff, it's going to be very hard for you to get it off the ground because you're at a strategic disadvantage. You don't have a reputation in the market. You don't have the awareness. You don't have economies of scale. You don't have several things that will enable you to be competitive when you're small. That's why you have to look at alternate ways of making yourself more efficient. Okay. The other reason is that the incentives of all the people doing the work will be different than if it was a true startup. The way startups work, usually, small businesses, is that the people doing the work in the beginning, whether it's the owners or their partners or whatever, they have an incentive to work hard, because if this thing becomes a success, they will get more than the value of an hourly wage. They will get the payoff that an owner would get, either in the form of shares or some other means, but they will have a different incentive to do a lot more work and care a lot more about the outcome. When you're employing people to, you're paying them by the hour, or you're paying a company as a contractor, they really don't care about your success. They just want to get the money for their contract, or they want to get their hourly wage. That's all they care. They don't care about the end result, right? So the incentive structure is all wrong too, right? So there's multiple reasons why this fails, okay? If you're not contributing and you're just wanting to be some kind of investor that just creates the entire company without having a senior manager or a CEO or something run it for you, there's a lot of issues with that. So that's what I would say about this. This is a big mistake. Do not think you can try this model. I don't know for sure that it will fail under all circumstances, but all I know is that I have seen it fail spectacularly in many different circumstances by different types of people in different industries, all trying this model. Okay? So that's what I have to say. Those are the three mistakes. In short, they are, number one, doing no validation, or just looking inward instead of looking outward at your customers to make decisions. That's the first mistake. Number two, taking out big loans, getting a lot of financial leverage at an early stage when you don't really know what you're doing, and chances are you're not going to make the perfect decisions right out of the gate. And number three, being a middleman / outsourcing type entrepreneur. Those are three common mistakes I've seen many times. So if you are relating to any of these and have considered doing them, let's talk about it. If maybe I haven't convinced you, let's talk about it. Let's talk about maybe alternate ways of accomplishing your goals. That's what I'm here to do. Okay, let's go over to you guys. There were several people here before. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. G. Marie says, I agree with mistake number 3. Have seen many new entrepreneurs outsourcing too soon. Yeah, exactly. I mean, outsourcing, you really have to know what you're doing on a business level to understand whether outsourcing is good or bad. And what I found is that you can't just look at the theory. You also have to look at what's actually going on, where the rubber meets the road, and understand, the little details about how this is being integrated into your business. There's a lot of companies that, for example, they pursue a quality-based strategy. So they're not being competitive because they're the cheapest. They're being competitive because of some quality-related strategy. Either they're focusing on a certain type of customer, like really, really well, and catering to their needs perfectly, giving them a good experience, or they produce a very high-quality product or service that customers buy based on the fact that it's really good. Okay, it's not the cheapest, but they want something really good, and that's why they come to you. Right now, I've seen people in that situation, they outsource something like their customer service, or some component, which then completely sabotages their overall strategy, whether if it's a quality-based strategy, tacking on, customer service from some place around the world where the people you actually talk to don't give a crap about the success of the business, inherently firsthand, that can lead to some pretty big problems. So, you know what I mean? Like, just to save a few nickels, it's not worth doing stuff like that. Like, you have to have an overarching strategy. So you really have to understand every aspect of like what's going on from the theoretical level all the way down to a practical operational level, with what's actually going on. And that's where you got to get your employees involved in this. They know all what's going on, and they have a lot of valid suggestions. That's where you would have to get them involved in these decisions rather than making it from up on high. Because it will likely not work out like the financial projections tell you they're going to work out. Youssef says, I am even hesitant to officially register a company despite having something to sell. Do I sell and validate and only after that start an official registering business? Okay, listen, obviously I can only give you a general answer because I don't know what you're trying to sell, to whom and where, and under what circumstances. But all things being equal, this is how I would do it. Okay, registering a company, that's bureaucracy. that adds no value directly. Okay, all that bureaucratic type stuff, whether it's getting an accountant to do your taxes or getting a lawyer to look over all your contracts or documents, registering your company name, incorporating your company, all that kind of stuff, I would not do any of that first. Okay? What I would do is I would do the core of what you're trying to do first to validate it. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to sell a certain thing to a certain type of customer. So I would do the simplest possible way of proving that you can sell this thing to the people you think you can sell it to. Okay? So usually for me, that involves something like sending a marketing message, whether you put up a sign or you do internet ads or you put up or you spread word of mouth or you go to a industry trade show or a convention or event, but you get the message out there and basically you say, hello, I have this. It costs this much. It does this. Who's interested? Who wants one? I'm taking orders. Okay, say it as if you have it. Now, if there's enough demand, if 100 people show up and say, yes, I will buy 2, here's your money. You know, they've got their money in their hand and they do that, right? Take my money, please, right? How soon will you be able to have my 2 units of this thing that you're selling, right? Like if you have 100 people or however many people line up, and that's the reaction you get. A couple of things. Number one, that's telling you, okay, looks like I'm onto something here. Assuming I can produce this thing for the amount that I think it's going to cost, then it looks like this is going to work, okay? The other thing you have out of it is you now have seed capital to spend on producing the first batch of whatever it is, right? Okay, so you've already got money, the money that they paid. You say, okay, you will have it in 6 to 8 weeks, like whatever, right? And you work your damnedest to fulfill those orders, right? And then if that goes well, that's when you worry about the bureaucracy. That's when you register the company name. That's where you hire an accountant to do all your taxes, do your books. That's where you incorporate your company or whatever you're going to do. All that administrative BS, that's when that stuff starts to become valid. The process of going through that starts to make sense. Okay? That's what I would say. This allows you to test ideas quickly. And there's nothing weird about it because you don't know if it's even a thing. You haven't sold any. You haven't even produced any. All you're doing is you're seeing if this is a thing you should pursue. Okay? And if you do, then when you start to engage in business, you do it properly, right? With all the administrative stuff. Okay, the other thing is that it also avoids you spending money on producing a prototype or an initial production run of something, if you're making products, only to find that nobody wants it. What's the point of designing, prototyping, producing, and then manufacturing a thing only to find that you can't sell a single one of them? Oh, sure, people said it was a good idea, but when it comes time to actually buy them, nobody's lining up. Right? So that's how I would approach it, all things being equal. And that's how I would advise everybody to approach this thing. Sometimes you can. Sometimes people think it's not possible, depending on what their idea is. Sometimes that's true. But most of the time, it's not true. You can break down what you're trying to do into a bite-sized thing that you can produce on your own, that you can sell in some way, shape, or form. Okay, you might have to think for a bit of how that would look like or what that would look like. But in most cases, it is possible to validate like this, like I just described. Okay, where did I leave off here? So that was Youssef, right? Bob says, or Bob is talking to Youssef. Somebody here is called A, as in A, right? I mean, I'm Canadian, so I guess, is that a shot at me? How's it going, eh? Being a first-year college student, how can you gain confidence in terms of talking to new people? Well, you can. First of all, some people just have it, especially in college. I mean, some people in college have maturity and personal communication and interaction skills that a lot of adults later in life don't even have, right? But if you are more of an introverted type, you don't find talking to people fun. You don't do it for fun. It's not your idea of a good time. Because of this, maybe you haven't developed your skills over the years, so you're as good at it. Maybe because of that, you don't feel as confident about it. Maybe you fear the process. It is possible to learn. And I just did a video. I think the last video I did that came out yesterday on my channel was called what was it? It's like how to improve your, get over social anxiety, right? The bottom line is it's like a two-step process. Number one, you figure out what are almost like a job interview. You do self-study, you figure what are the answers to common job interview questions. You find out what those are, you memorize them, right? That's the first step. And then the second step is you go out and practice. So in your case, you would be like, okay, what do I say? How do I approach people? You get answers for that. Then you start putting it into practice. And if you know what the right answers are, how do I approach people? What do I say? This kind of thing. If you've got those right, when you start putting it into practice, it goes well. And the confidence comes by seeing like, hey, I just got a good result. I tried this and it's going really well. And I actually feel better about myself, right? Now, in terms of what are those answers, how do you figure that out? I mean, there's many ways you could do it. Personally, for me, I have a course that talks about that. If you wanted to take the plunge, you could try that course, okay? There's a link in the description if you do, where I talk about how to get a job, but through networking, how to approach people, how to reach out to them. And we're talking like CEOs here. We're talking executives, people that can help you, okay? So it's how to do that. And everybody can do this. I've taught university courses where and college courses where I've trained college students and university students to do this. And I even made it not a requirement, but a bonus is that if you can get a selfie with you and the CEO that you talk to, you get like 5 points extra or something like that. And a lot of students went out and did that. They surprised themselves by being able to do this. And these are people that are between 18 and 25. Okay, so you can find this out. I've got a couple of things, or you could just go learn in general, but don't believe people that tell you can't do this. A lot of people will say, oh, who are you to talk to some important person? Well, they're wrong. You can, and it's possible if you know what to do. I've built an entire consulting business on doing precisely that. That's why I put it into this course. I've used these techniques. Okay, but it's that twofold process. Learn the theory, learn what you do, and then go out and practice it. You must have both to get good at it. And then the confidence will follow. Where was I here? Okay, that was A. So good luck with that, A. V8 Super Special says, thanks, Bill. What would you say is a big loan in US dollars, maybe not Canadian dollars? Wah-ha-ha! Yeah, exactly. Because there's such a big difference between them. I think it's like a 30% difference or something. So something that costs $1 in the States costs like $1.30 or something in Canada. Well, that's obviously going to vary by person, but I would say like something, the price of a car and up would be what I would term as a big loan for an individual. Okay. Now, for example, in Canada, and I know in the States, you guys have very similar programs to this. You can get government loans, not grants. Sometimes they call them grants, but they're not a grant. They're a loan because they require you to pay it back. this is a slimy thing that they've been doing in the last 10 years. They're calling like some of these government programs, it's grant. A grant implies that they give you money and no strings attached, basically. As long as you spend it on the thing that you said you were going to spend it on, it's fine. If you spend it on that, it produces nothing, you don't make a penny, it's okay. Okay? If it's a grant. But if it's a loan, you have to pay the money back, right? So they were doing government grants for things like $50,000. So little companies, like 2-person companies and stuff, could get a government grant for $50,000 to assist you in starting up your business, right? But they weren't really grants. They're loans. And that's been a trend where it's this slimy kind of thing. So really what it is, it's a bank loan where the bank doesn't give a rat's ass about your business or what you're going to do with it, because you got to pay the money back anyway. So they don't really care, right? In the old days, they would they want a business plan and they want to see what you're doing. And, that's why they go through this highly selective process of approving people, right? Because, they cared about if this thing was going to succeed or not. Now they don't. They just say, you have to sign this personal guarantee. And that just means that even if your company doesn't make a cent, they need you to repay the whole thing, right? So very slimy, very underhanded. I think it's very predatory, to be honest with you. But in Canada and the States, that's kind of what's been increasingly happening. So anything about $20,000 US up, I would consider definitely a big loan. And you really don't want to do that. If it's a totally untested idea and this is your first time trying it, absolutely not. And if you think, oh, well, there's no way I could start my business then if I don't get this money to start it off, you're wrong. You are absolutely wrong. You just don't realize it. There is always a way to break it down to a more bite-sized thing that you can do where you can make money and you can validate at least a piece of the problem you're going to solve. And then when that works, you can ramp up. Okay? Jean Marie says, yes, Bob. So Jean Marie's talking to Bob. This jumped on me again. Christopher says, this was needed. Thanks. You're welcome, Christopher. Nana Yaw says, please, how do I start a food and beverage company in the US without first registering? I want to start before registering. I'm not sure. I'm not in the US. I don't know what their regulations are. For regulated industries, it might be a bit harder. Okay. I know food is a regulated industry in the States as well as in Canada and a lot of other places. You can't just create food and then start selling it to people without the government approving what you're doing. I mean, you could have made these new types of brownies that have arsenic and cyanide in it. It's the latest thing, and bad things then happened. And the obvious thing was, who approved this? Well, nobody. Okay, well, then sorry, we're not helping you with this. You have to answer. So, you know what I mean? I'm not sure. Now, there are a lot of people that are in that business in the States who know the answer to this. If you wanted to register so that you can start producing something, like, I don't know, you want to start up a food production company, you want to make your own brownies or whatever, right? Or food-related product. There are people that are working in that business that are on the inside of it that have all the answers. They can tell you what's the easiest way to start something up. They can tell you exactly how to do it. They can maybe even do it for you. They know what would be the best way to proceed, and they also know the simplest, easiest, cheapest way to get that operation off the ground so you can produce something, right? They would know all this. So what would be a good starting point would be for you to do informational interviews with the people in that business in your region, like your hometown or something. Reach out to them. Now, if you're wondering the specifics, how do I specifically go about doing that? I've got 2 resources for you. There's a video I did that shows you how to use specifically, like it's a demonstration of how to use Google Maps and LinkedIn to do this, to discover the people around you that can help you, and then how to reach out for them and get informational interviews with them, where they say, yes, let's talk. You say, would I be able to talk to you and get your opinion on a couple of things? And they say, yes, come to my office. How about 2:00 on Thursday? Come down. They invite you in, and you go down and you ask them some questions. They have all the answers for these questions. I don't. No expert will for you, for what you're trying to do, but they will. You reach out to the people that you need to talk to that know this stuff. Okay, so how to do it. I got a video called How Successful People Get Jobs. Now, I know we're not talking about jobs here, but it shows you the exact process of how to do that. Then, if you want to go deeper, like I said about 10 minutes ago, I have the very specific method with templates and all that kind of stuff. It's all in this course because I do it in the context that you're going to be looking for a job, but it's exactly the same process to talk to people if you have a different goal. Okay, if you don't want a job, you don't want them to eventually hire you or work with you, you want just to pick their brain and get a recommendation from them. Same process. It gets you in front of the same people. Okay, so that's how to pursue that. There's a lot of principles all stacked on top of each other about how things work. And you need to know those, and then you need to do certain things based on how everything works, and it shows you that stuff. I don't think there's a link to that video in the description box of this live stream, because this is a business live stream. But usually it's in the description box of a lot of my videos, just a resource. People are saying some very nice things. G. Marie, agree, 100% bite size. We call it chunking the elephant. Okay. That's an interesting way of putting it. V8 Super Special, a curiosity. If you still have a regular job and then register your own company, wouldn't it seem like having 2 jobs, which is immediate termination of contract for many jobs? Yeah, it could be. It depends. It depends on the nature of the relationship with your employer, your main employer. Sometimes they specifically write that into contracts. Other times they don't. Sometimes they don't, but it doesn't matter because unofficially they don't like that, and so they will terminate. That's the practice. Sometimes if your home business is completely unrelated to your day job, like it's in a completely different industry, like you've got a job as a customer support representative, for software company, but you've got a business on your own at home baking cakes and selling them for weddings or something. Like sometimes people don't care. But that's why if you're going to do this, I would do it on the down low. I wouldn't do that stuff until you have enough money coming in, for it to make sense. For if your employer, let's assume this is something you really wanted to do with your life, like this was your big dream or something, and you have enough money coming in that even if your day job fired you, they said like, sorry, you can't do that and work here, you would be okay, and then you'd be able to ramp up your business and replace your income. You know what I mean? Like I would just keep it on the down low. I'd do it anyway to validate it, and then I would try to ramp it up while you're employed with them. And then if you can ramp it up, then you have the option of leaving your day job to do this full time. That's how I would do it. And before somebody says it, does that mean you have to operate while, you're not incorporated and you're not registered? Yes, it does. In the beginning, just a handful of transactions. Yeah. Usually it doesn't get to be a big problem until you're making millions of dollars or like significant money without following the rules, technically, right? And this is obviously assuming it's a non-regulated industry that you're in. Okay, if you can't sell medical devices, you know what I mean? that's highly regulated. So we're talking about stuff that's unregulated. Julia says start small. Yes, break it down, start small. Big business is around to solve big problems. Small business exists to solve small problems. So break it down. If you're a one-person company or a one-person business unit, you should be working on something small. Maybe it's only for a handful of customers. Maybe it's a tiny little piece of something. Maybe it's only serving a very small geographic location or a very small, tiny piece of the market, but it's something small. G. Marie says, we'll definitely be taking your MBA course. Thank you so much for creating that. You're absolutely welcome. Yes. I created it to help two types of people, really. Number one is entrepreneurs, because this stuff is gold if you're wanting to do a business. Learning business is gold for teaching you what to do. I also created it for people who want to move up into management. This will tell you how to manage things. Once again, same idea. This will tell you what to do. Learning business helps you to do business, So, yeah. So thank you for saying that, Maria. I hope you take the plunge, and I hope you find it really useful. Youssef says, I like what you said in terms of being extroverted and talking to the target audience, but the problem is what I'm trying to do is create software and sell subscription online to people I've never met. Okay, excellent. That's great that you've pinned that down. Now, Youssef, here's what you need to do. Who are the people that would buy this? Specifically, who are the people that would buy your thing? Okay? Don't tell me you don't know, okay? Because if you have no clue who's going to buy this, how do you know what to do? Right? How do you know what would be a good thing to incorporate into it if you don't know who's going to buy it, what they're using it for? How would you know how much to sell it for? Is this something that should be sold for $1 or $2, or this is something you could sell for $5,000? Don't tell me you don't know. Go out and find these people. Go out and find a way to talk to them, to see who they are, why they like it, what they're hoping to get out of it, why they chose your thing over all the other things they could have chosen, right? Okay. Now, maybe those people all congregate at a certain event. Like, for example, if it's software, okay, well, there's a lot, like if it's business software, there's certainly a huge number of different trade shows that happen every year all over the world where the producers of business software and the customers of business software, and the enthusiasts of business software and the regulators of business software and, everybody involved with it all comes together for an event, right? You can meet them all in one place. You get a stack of business cards, you go walking around and you can meet and have conversations with all these people. If it's gaming software, if it's like, not a business thing, but it's more, entertainment to the consumers directly, they have trade shows for that too. They have events for that, right? Go to those events, find out who these people are, find out what they're saying, how they think, how they view things, Get to know these people. Now, if it doesn't make sense to fly to a place to do this because you're not making any money, at least try and be involved with it somehow. Try and maybe they film videos of people walking around doing this. Go watch those videos. You need to understand your customers. If you just pepper the market with here's a thing, let's see if anyone buys it. Maybe a couple of people buy it or they try it as a demo. Then go and try and connect with those people. What did you think? Do you have any suggestions? I'll give you this little bonus if you give me some feedback, right? You need to get that information one way or another, or you have no clue what you're trying to do. How would you make a business decision based on, I have no idea who this is for? How would you know how big to make it? How good to make it, right? Okay. And it's not an excuse to say, oh, it's unknowable, because it's always knowable and it has to be knowable or else you will most likely fail. G. Marie says, Bill, What did you think about the new SBA government contracting sites and recent BOI filing reversal? No idea what any of that stuff is. Are you in the United States? I'm not in the United States, so that's probably why I don't know what those are. Don't use acronyms when you're talking to somebody. I have no idea where in the world you are or what industry you're in or anything like that. So, but no, those don't ring any bells. Bob says to seek permission is to seek permission is to seek denial. Yeah, that's the other thing. How can I put this? Entrepreneurs, in a way, should be rebels. You should not be the type of person that always asks permission, stays in their lane, waits to be called. You know what I mean? That's the opposite of what entrepreneurship is. Entrepreneurship is if I see a need, or an opportunity, I'm going to go for it. I don't need to ask anyone's permission. I'm going to see if I can help people. And if I can help people, I can give them something that they want or that they need. I can make money. The amount of money I make is directly proportional to the amount of help I can give people. I give them something they want or I give them something they need. The more successful I am at doing that, the more money I will make. Right? By definition, you don't need to ask anyone's permission because no one has done that thing before. If someone had done that exact thing, then there wouldn't be a need anymore. There wouldn't be a hole that needs plugging. Right? So yeah, you got to step out of this whole conditioning that everybody gets where they want you to stay in your little kind of space and just accept what we say and don't ask questions and don't hope for anything more, right? It's based on, I can do more. I want more. I'm smarter than people think. That's what this is based on. And I'm going to act independently. I'm going to go out and I'm going to act on my own initiative and try stuff. That's what this world is basically about. So you've got to have at least a little bit of that. Bob Masavo says to see, yeah, okay. G. Marie is talking to Youssef. V8 Super Special, thanks. Here, though, the good old EU, it's going to be nigh impossible to operate without registering. The state wants to know how many strands of hair you have on your... Yeah, it always seems like that, doesn't it? But the more people try and pin things down, the more people outmaneuver them and go around it, right? Look at what's happening with like the latest trendy thing is AI, right? I mean, that's like a jungle, and people, the forces of organization, they would like to have everything pinned down and regimented and regulated. I'm not saying that stuff is necessarily bad, but what I'm saying is that it's a moving target, right? Just when you think you've got everything sort of pinned down and organized and everything's planned out, something new comes along and, you never planned for that. So therefore you don't have any rules about it, laws governing it, regulations sort of, telling people what they can do and what they can't do. That hasn't been created yet. And until it becomes a mature industry, that's not going to be the case. The other thing is that as an individual, you don't necessarily have to always operate like a big company, right? Big companies are watched very closely and they have to do everything by the book as far as governments are concerned. Individuals, you're a small fry. You're not on the radar. You're not even a blip on the radar. So you can sometimes do things that are unofficial, where you don't have to conform to the nth degree to every little law, every little business regulation. Like if you're just trying an idea and you've never done a business before, right? There's all kinds of examples of this. Okay, don't read into what I'm saying that any kind of political views or anything. I'm just saying if you want to try a business idea, you want to try. For example, we're talking about making brownies earlier. If you think you want to open a business baking brownies, and you say, here, I've baked these brownies at home in my kitchen, so it's unregulated, it's unapproved to sell to the public, but you sort of talk to your circle of friends and say, hey, I'm selling brownies. Who wants to buy brownies for $5? and a lot of your friends, to show support, they say, sure, I'll buy them for $5. You know, like, I don't think the government is going to jump on you and bring you to court for that. You know, it's pretty innocent. It's very small, right? Technically, if they wanted to nail you to the wall, they could. But nobody does that, right? You would never try out another recipe on someone, you know, if they did, right? So, you know what I'm saying? You can take advantage of that to sort of figure out what you're doing. But then once it gets serious, like quit your job serious to do this, then you have to start, you know, crossing the T's and dotting the I's. Bob says, yeah. Julia says, don't despise the day of small beginning, they say. Okay? It is true. Experience is the best teacher, learning by doing. Yep. These are sayings. Yusef, okay. So the product I've created is an AI application that is targeting people who are down in the cycle of life. It gives you a place for diary, timetable, sleep schedule, eventually an AI to talk to. So I've made the publishing app on App Store and no customers. So I guess I already failed in point number 1. Well, you never know. If you put something out there, you know, usually you have to promote it in a certain way, right? That's the general rule. To get something out there, you have to promote it. And the more promotion you put into something, all things being equal, the more exposure it will get, and then therefore the more sales you will make, right? Now, some things can be a very easy sell or a very hard sell, right? This could be a hard sell, but if you've just done this one teeny tiny little thing and it hasn't immediately taken off, I'm not sure. It might not be conclusive that that's a failure. You know what I mean? You know, you got to start somewhere, and you've got the operations side down. You can create something. Now what you've got to do is you got to develop your marketing skills. Like, you could create many different things, right? And you don't know what to create, so you're sort of taking a blind guess as to what people would see the value in, right? If you knew exactly what they would see the value in, you could go ahead and just make that, right? But that's what's holding you back. It's because you don't understand the perspective of one of your potential customers, right? So the way forward is not to like work on the operations more. The way forward is to produce something that appeals to people, right? Now, you don't necessarily have to create something and have it all done for you to sell it. You can always promise something. There's nothing wrong with going somewhere on the internet, some kind of group or chat room or whatever, and lifting up your hand and say, hey, I've got this. Anyone interested? Right? There's absolutely nothing to prevent you from doing that. Now, if you hear crickets and there's 1,000 people there, that tells you one thing. If there's 100 people there and already 5 people say, yes, tell me more, I'm interested, I'd like to buy it, that tells you something else. So you have to learn that process. That's the marketing process, right? Maybe you have come up with the perfect product, but you put it on display in a place where the people who would buy it don't go. So all the people seeing it were people that couldn't relate to it. Like, maybe everyone in that place who saw it was 90 years old. They don't even know what AI means, right? I don't know. How do you know that that's not what happened? You know what I'm saying? So you've got to work on that side of it, okay? If you don't know what to do at all, a very simple starting place is to look at what your competitors are doing. So other companies that are sort of in the same space as you, find out what they're doing. Where do they show off their products? Do they show them off at trade shows with a big announcement? Who do they tell first? How do they tell people? You know what I mean? Like, who do they go to first? Do they go indirectly by sending it to places on the internet that promote it for them? I don't know. So find out all that stuff. That's even before you get your first informational interview with someone that can help you. You know what I mean? There's so much stuff you can do to step into that world. And the more you do, the more successful you will be. V8 Super Special says, simple example, just to receive payments, you'll need to be registered. Here in particular, any payment done unregulated is extremely frowned upon. Okay, well, we wouldn't want anyone to frown upon anything. Yusef, so to your question, target is 22 to 40-year-olds, and the price is $10 a month. So any 22 to 40-year-old would buy this? What about the people that are off the grid? I'm assuming they're not excluded, right? People that are not interested in AI and don't understand what AI is, I'm sure they would not be included in this, right? So obviously, what I'm getting at is you can refine that much, much further, right? You could say people who, let's say they've already paid for this product. They already play this video game, or they are on ChatGPT all day long, or, you know, like you know what I'm saying? Like, you could refine it further. It's a start, but you got to go much deeper than that. Bob says, someone could have the best technology product in the world, and if no one knows about it, you're dead in the water. Exactly. Right? Now, it's impossible to promote something just everywhere. You have to pick. You have to be selective of where you get exposures, where the awareness needs to be, right? So knowing that is critical. Yusef, the app is called AVA and is on Android, Google Store. It's for people and entrepreneurs to achieve their dreams. Anyone interested, raise his hand slowly. Ha ha ha. Yeah. I will say the specific thing, and then I have to start winding this down. But, you know, that sounds similar. And I'm not saying this in a bad way. I'm just pointing this out. That sounds similar to a common claim, promise, where people say it saves you money, right? Buy this product. It will save you money, right? Now, one would think that it would be hard to say no to that because everybody wants to save money, right? What people find is that they especially startups, they start up a new thing. Here, we've created this new thing. It saves you money. And they think like, that has universal appeal. So I'm expecting a great response. Anybody who sees this, they'll respond and they'll say, tell me more. What they find is that that's actually a very tough sell because most customers or clients, when they hear that, they have a problem. And the problem is that they don't trust that you're actually going to save them money because that's such a common, overused, cliched claim that the response to that type promotion is actually very low, right? Which is kind of unintuitive. You would think that everybody would want that, and therefore they would respond big time, right? But no, that's not what we see. We see the opposite. They respond very poorly to that. Because it's not that they don't want to save money, it's that they don't trust that you'll be able to save money because they've heard that promise so many times before. It's like a cliche, right? So I'm not sure, but saying something like, to achieve your dreams or something, to me, it sounds like it could be another one of those. I'm not sure. You might have to be more specific and say it does this for this particular thing in this way. And then maybe, even though that's more specific, you might get more of a response. Just something to try. Just an idea. Okay, so that's what I'll say. Thanks to the awesome participation in the chat today. For 17 people, this is a lot of chat activity. You guys are awesome. I'm glad that you're coming with me on this and you're interested enough to respond like this. So thank you very much. Hopefully you got something out of this. I do this live stream every Monday, Side Hustle Ideas. So if you are trying something or you're embarking on a journey to start your own business or start a side hustle or whatever, come back and let me know what you're wondering, what you're dealing with, and we can get into more specifics if people want to do that. I'll be back next week at the same time. Thank you to Yusef. Thank you to Bob. Thank you to V8 Super Special. Thank you to everybody, to everybody who participated today. You guys are awesome. Check out my course, $100 MBA. If you want to learn business, this is the vehicle I created to help people learn business. I think that learning business is incredibly empowering, whatever you do with your life, because making money is in some way connected to business for everybody. And the more about it you know and how it all works, the further you'll go. So whether you have a conventional job or you've got your trying to start your entrepreneurial type venture, you can use this information. You can use this knowledge. Check out the course. There's a link in the description. Thanks, everybody. I am going to be back actually in 45 minutes. I have another live stream, which is called Career Expert Roundtable. This is where we talk about jobs, and this is where I collaborate with other YouTubers that also give advice and stuff on careers and employment and how to get jobs. So if you're interested in that, come back in that. I have 3 guests today. So check out that. I'll be talking to 3 other people. So my goal is to have as many people on these things as possible. So we're expanding, and this is the next step that we're doing today. So come back and check that out. Thanks, everyone. You guys are awesome. I wish you nothing but the best, and I'll see you very soon. Take care.